was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our...
The entire House chamber pulsed with tension and anticipation as Nicole Malliotakis and Lisa McClain took the floor. Two lawmakers, firm, unshaken, and resolute, stood ready to defend the principles they believed defined this nation. What followed wasn't a routine exchange of political words. It was a long-awaited moment of accountability, a reckoning that had been building for years. Ilhan Omar's removal from her committee seat was not driven by spite or political rivalry. It was presented as a stand for integrity, responsibility, and the standards expected from those who serve the American public. For far too long, many had felt that certain figures could make controversial remarks without ever facing real consequences. But this session marked a turning point, an unmistakable declaration that no title, no affiliation, places anyone above accountability. When Malliotakis and McClain spoke, their voices carried more than personal conviction. They represented the frustration, pride, and pain of millions of citizens who had waited to see Congress defend the honor of their nation's values. Their message echoed beyond party lines. It spoke to a deep desire to restore trust and remind the world that America still holds its principles sacred. Years earlier, Representative Omar had made comments referring to the tragic events of September 11th, remarks that left a lasting mark on many hearts. Her description of that devastating day as "some people did something" was seen by countless Americans as deeply insensitive. Those 5 words, uttered about one of the darkest chapters in U.S. history, felt to many like a wound reopened, a reminder of loss, grief, and sacrifice that still resonates across generations. For the families who lost loved ones, those words stirred painful memories. For the first responders who risked everything and still bear the scars of that day, they served as a bitter reminder of a tragedy that can never be minimized. The statement revealed a perspective that many believed was disconnected from the shared reverence the nation holds for that moment in history. Nicole Malliotakis never forgot that remark, and neither did the Americans who saw it as an insult to the legacy of the victims and heroes of 9/11. Today's hearing, therefore, was about more than one member of Congress. It was about reaffirming national respect, demanding accountability, and reminding the world that the United States does not forget the pain of its past. It was a symbolic moment of closure, a collective stand to ensure that the memory of that day, and the values it represents, will always be honored.
Colleagues, the reasons why the Representative Omar should be removed from this committee, but I feel like all the reasons have not just yet been stated, which is why I rise to add for the record. We've heard about the comments that were made regarding anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli views, but I rise to add to the record that as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I've sat there and heard the representative actually spew anti-American rhetoric as well.
When Nicole Malliotakis stepped to the podium, she didn't speak as a politician chasing applause. She spoke as an American standing firmly on principle. Her tone carried calm confidence, but beneath it was unmistakable fire. Each word landed with purpose, her conviction steady and unyielding. The chamber grew silent, every ear tuned in. As she began to outline her case with precision and passion, she recalled how Representative Ilhan Omar, while serving on the influential Foreign Affairs Committee, had made remarks that stirred deep concern. Time and again, Malliotakis noted, Omar had criticized key American allies and questioned the legitimacy of Israel, even drawing comparisons that placed the United States alongside hostile groups. For many in the room, that crossed a line no elected leader should ever approach, a breach of the respect and responsibility that come with public office. Malliotakis didn't deliver her speech for partisan points or personal recognition. Her purpose was larger, to remind everyone that Congress is not a platform for private ideology or agendas. It is, she said, a sacred institution built to save the American people, the very men and women whose sacrifices have preserved the nation's freedom and unity. Then, her tone shifted, not louder, but stronger, carrying the weight of shared truth. She spoke of the American flag, not as a symbol of politics, but as a banner woven from generations of courage, sacrifice, and hope. It stands for freedom hard-won, for unity that must be protected, and for the belief that America's greatness comes from its people, not from division or blame. Her words echoed through the chamber. The mood transformed. The noise of partisanship seemed to fade, replaced by a rare stillness, a clarity that had long been missing from political discourse. In that moment, Nicole Malliotakis reminded the nation that patriotism is not a slogan, it's a duty, and it's one that still beats strong in the heart of the House.
I've been in that committee room where the representative equates Israel and the United States to Hamas and the Taliban. Absolutely unacceptable for a member of that committee. I've also heard the representative equate that it is the United States' fault that there is turmoil in Venezuela, that is not because of the oppressive socialist and communism that has spread throughout Central and South America and Venezuela at the hands of the Maduro and Hugo Chavez regimes. That is unacceptable. And as a New York representative, to hear the representative belittle, to try to diminish.
Then came Representative Lisa McClain, a woman known across Congress for her unflinching honesty and unmistakable patriotism. When she rose to speak, the room shifted. Her presence carried both authority and emotion. This wasn't a speech rehearsed for effect. It was a release of years of pent-up frustration, not only with Representative Omar, but with the political culture that had allowed controversy to pass without consequence. McClain's message was unmistakable. No apology. No carefully worded statement could erase years of rhetoric that many saw as deeply disrespectful to the very nation she served. Her words struck at a deeper truth, that real leadership means owning one's actions, standing by one's values, and defending what is right, even when it's difficult. As her voice grew stronger, her passion filled the chamber. She invoked the Constitution, not as a talking point, but as a sacred promise. Every member of Congress, she reminded them, had taken an oath to protect it. That oath was not symbolic. It was a responsibility that demanded courage and integrity. Even in moments of discomfort, McClain's tone sharpened as she spoke about accountability, not as cruelty, but as the foundation upon which democracy survives. Without it, she said, trust in leadership collapses. Her fiery conviction cut through the tension of the room, forcing even her critics to listen. And then came her defining line, one that echoed far beyond the chamber. When you insult the nation you represent, you surrender the privilege of representing it. The silence that followed was powerful, a silence of reflection, of realization, and of truth finally spoken aloud.
The worst terrorist attack on United States soil on September 11, 2001, as some people did something, that is unacceptable as well. And I hold the same standard for this side of the aisle that I do the other, because when another colleague on my side said something about 9/11, I also voted to have her removed from the Education Committee because I thought that was inappropriate. So I'm being consistent here, and I hope my colleagues will do the same to show that this is about consistency and accountability.
The list of concerns surrounding Representative Ilhan Omar was neither brief nor built on speculation. It wasn't rumor, and it wasn't political theater. It was a record, laid bare on the floor of the United States Congress. As Nicole Malliotakis spoke, her words carried the weight of documentation, not accusation. One by one, she recounted moments that, taken together, formed a troubling pattern. Omar, she explained, had not only criticized America's global role but often portrayed the nation as a source of conflict rather than a force for peace. She had downplayed the severity of terror attacks, questioned long-standing alliances, and ignored the immense price that generations of Americans had paid for freedom. Each remark, each dismissal, chipped away at the reverence expected from a member of Congress sworn to defend the country she serves. Malliotakis described how identity politics had too often been used as a shield, a way to turn accountability into accusation, to dismiss criticism as bias. But this time, that defense found no footing. The chamber was listening, and this time, it wasn't about politics, it was about principle. Her voice was steady as she read through the record, each example underscoring the same truth, that Omar's words and actions no longer aligned with the spirit of her oath. This was not an attack, Malliotakis clarified. It was a matter of responsibility, a statement that the privilege of representation carries a higher standard. The evidence spoke for itself, and the silence that followed proved that the weight of it had landed for Malliotakis and McClain. This moment was never about personal victory or partisan gain. It was about drawing a line, a reminder that service in Congress is not a right granted forever, but a duty that must be honored every single day. They invoked the ideals that shaped America's identity: freedom, unity, and moral courage. Their words reached far beyond the walls of the Capitol. They spoke to the veterans who still salute the flag with pride, to families who teach their children what sacrifice truly means, and to citizens who still believe in accountability. Their message reignited something long dormant, the belief that honor still has a place in public service. By the end of their speeches, one truth stood firm: representing the United States is not about privilege, it's about purpose. And for those who forget that, those who take the nation's respect for granted, this moment served as a warning. America, they declared, will always defend its dignity. It can't be dismissed, and it won't be disrespected.
Because we should not have an individual with those views on the committee that is tasked with representing our country and our Congress to foreign nations. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back.
Gentleman reserves. Gentlelady from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to use that logic, well, then all those people should have just said sorry and we'd move on, right? But no, we don't do that. And let me tell you, I take a little bit of offense to what the hell is wrong with me. I'll tell you, there's nothing wrong with me. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Again, I'm not going to apologize for it.
As the chamber prepared for the vote, the atmosphere grew dense, almost motionless. Conversations quieted. Every lawmaker knew what was coming, and the tension was unmistakable. Some members exchanged uneasy glances, others sat resolute, their expressions firm. The moment of decision had finally arrived. Then the gavel struck. The sound echoed through the chamber like a final note of reckoning. The outcome was undeniable. Ilhan Omar was officially removed. What happened in that instant wasn't merely procedural. It was symbolic, powerful, and deeply consequential. This wasn't just a political outcome. It was a message. A message to every American watching that accountability still exists within the halls of power. For the first time in years, citizens watching from across the nation witnessed something rare: unity in defense of principle. The applause that followed wasn't about sides or parties. It was about shared conviction. It was the sound of a people reclaiming faith in their institutions, the echo of a nation demanding that standards and integrity still matter. The impact was immediate and widespread. Across newsrooms, social media feeds, and living rooms, the reaction poured in: relief from some, pride from many, and a collective sense that something long overdue had finally happened. For countless Americans, this wasn't about politics. It was about justice, about seeing that patriotism and responsibility could once again guide leadership. In the days that followed, Nicole, Malliotakis, and McClain emerged as the faces of courage in a time of division. They became symbols of what public service is meant to embody: fearless conviction, moral clarity, and loyalty to the people rather than the party. Their stand reignited faith among citizens who had grown weary of Washington's silence and compromise. That day proved a truth as old as the Republic itself: one voice rooted in conviction can spark change. And when those voices unite behind principle, they can shift the direction of history. The chamber may have quieted after the vote, but the echo of that moment, the call for integrity, for duty, for country, continues to resonate far beyond its walls.
I'm going to hold the Constitution, and it's very simple. We really shouldn't even have this debate. If you break the law and you follow due process, there are consequences to your actions, even if you say sorry. So we can try all of the diversion tactics that we would like. It doesn't change the fact that someone broke the law and that someone should be held accountable.
While Ilhan Omar's removal marked a decisive moment, both Nicole Malliotakis and McClain reminded the nation that this was not the end. It was only the beginning of a much larger fight. The vote, they said, was a victory for accountability, but it also exposed how deeply divided the political culture had become. There are still voices within Congress who share Omar's perspective, voices that view America not as a force for good, but as the source of its own problems. For Malliotakis and McClain, this movement was never about one individual. It was about something far greater: restoring faith in what America stands for. They spoke of reclaiming the very soul of the nation, of renewing pride in its principles, and of refusing to let cynicism define its future. Their message was direct and unwavering. The country can no longer afford to accept rhetoric that tears it apart under the banner of progress. The mission, they declared, is now clear: to elect leaders who stand firm in their convictions, who do not hesitate to defend their country, and who view the American flag not as a symbol of division, but as a reminder of unity, sacrifice, and freedom. Their call wasn't limited to their colleagues on Capitol Hill. It reached every household, every voter, and every citizen who still believes that this nation deserves leadership grounded in integrity and gratitude. As the day drew to a close and the chamber slowly emptied, the message of this historic vote continued to echo far beyond Washington. Ilhan Omar's removal was more than a procedural decision. It became a cultural turning point, a reset that reaffirmed the importance of courage over complacency. In a time when division has become commonplace, this moment reminded the country that conviction still carries weight, that principles still matter, and that the spirit of unity, once thought to be fading, can still rise when Americans choose to defend what binds them together.
It is disappointing, Mr. Speaker, that their own party can't hold them accountable, that they have such hypocrisy. So with that, I yield 2 minutes to my friend from New York, Nicole Malliotakis.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
The aftermath of Ilhan Omar's removal sent tremors through Washington. What had begun as a heated debate now unfolded into a defining moment of consequence. The halls of Congress buzzed with tension, conversations in corners, reporters rushing between offices, cameras capturing every expression. Lawmakers who had once avoided taking sides suddenly found themselves at a crossroads: to stand with the principles of accountability or to defend a colleague whose words had long sparked controversy. Nicole Malliotakis and McClain emerged from the chamber with quiet resolve. They didn't carry themselves as victors of a political fight, but as representatives who had upheld the responsibility entrusted to them. In their eyes,
when you
this
see
wasn't about
rampant
winning. It was about
xenophobia,
proving that
it
integrity
is
still has a
tied
place
to
in
economic
government.
hardship.
Across the nation, Americans responded. Veterans, first responders,
I think he has a real vitriol reaction anytime he's.
Many said they finally felt heard, that justice had found its way into the halls of Congress once again. For them, the decision wasn't vengeance. It was validation that respect for national values still mattered. Omar's supporters,
anti-Semitic,
framed
and
the moment
accused the
differently,
president of
portraying
racism.
her as unfairly targeted.
But on Capitol Hill,
But the
accountable
broader
for your
public saw
views.
something else,
Can you respond to that?
a rare act of accountability.
No, thank you.
For the first time in years, people sensed that elected officials were listening to the citizens they served behind closed doors. The emotional toll of the vote became visible. McClain admitted that standing against political pressure wasn't easy, yet she believed silence would have been far worse. Nicole Malliotakis, a New Yorker who had witnessed the lingering pain of 9/11, spoke from the heart, a conviction shaped not by politics, but by experience. Both women drew their strength from memory, from patriotism, and from the belief that serving in Congress is a duty, not a privilege. Their resolve struck a chord beyond party lines. Even those who disagreed could sense the sincerity in their message, a reminder that true leadership is guided by conscience, not convenience. When the final vote was read, every yes stood as a pledge to integrity and national unity, while every no revealed how divided courage in politics had become. The significance of the vote stretched far past the chamber. In living rooms across the country, people felt history pressing forward, a symbolic moment when Congress, for the first time in a long time, seemed to remember who it served. Malliotakis and McClain demonstrated that leadership is not about volume or popularity. It's about clarity, strength, and the willingness to act when others hesitate. Their courage became a quiet message to future generations. Truth can still stand tall, even when surrounded by noise. In the days that followed, media coverage varied. Some framed the event as retribution, others as renewal. But beyond the headlines, citizens had already formed their own judgment. They had heard the speeches, seen the emotion, and recognized authenticity when it appeared before them. Independent journalists replayed the moment online, and millions watched as the words of Malliotakis and McClain cut through the spin. For once, truth had spoken louder than politics. The decision became a marker in time, the beginning of what many called a new era of accountability in Washington. The vote reminded every lawmaker that words carry weight, and that respect for one's nation is not optional. What began as a single motion on the House floor soon grew into a nationwide conversation. From community centers to veterans gatherings, people raised flags, sang anthems, and reflected on what unity really means. It wasn't about exclusion. It was about pride, about protecting the shared ideals that bind a diverse nation together that as the days turned into weeks, Ilhan Omar's removal stood less as a punishment and more as a precedent. It marked a turning point, a collective decision that the House of Representatives would no longer be a platform for division, but a place where accountability endures. Nicole Malliotakis and McClain didn't simply win a procedural vote. They restored a measure of trust. Their actions reminded the nation that leadership is defined not by popularity, but by principle. And as Americans look back on that day, they'll remember it not for the politics, but for the message it carried, that conviction, unity, and love for one's country still have the power to bring people together.